And most of the money is on us. Now, to make it even worse, remember I said land plan is only a quarter, let's say, of the remaining land? You only pay $900,000? Well, guess what? They have to oversize everything because of all the neighbors further upstream that are gonna run it to their property. Everything has to be bigger. They get credits for that. They get credit for having to make everything bigger than what they need on their own property. Who do you think has to reimburse them the money for that? That would be us. So they don't even have to pay a quarter of their half. They pay even a fraction of that fraction because of the oversizing. Okay? It's millions and millions of dollars that we're on the hook for.
So in our budget, general funds like $400,000, utility funds like $300,000, $200,000. For us to, so when we're talking about, I'm just trying to calculate the risk, right? So we're talking about a $7.2 million outlay on income of, let's say, $300,000, in which we have expenses of $280,000, in which you have an overflow of, let's say, $20,000, $30,000. So you have an overflow of $20,000, $30,000, you get an increased debt of 7.2 minus half if you build everything out. Is there any way to mitigate $3.5 million debt? If you're only turning 20 in, right? Is there any way to mitigate $3.5 million debt? Can you build it out in sections? Is there a way to say, hey, we can spread the risk over a period of time? How do we do it so that the town doesn't get caught short of $3.5 million debt?
You can build it as you come, but some items, like the treatment plant, is gonna be it's gonna be a one-time expansion. And it's gonna be $1 million probably. And the well, it's gonna be, you need the well, you do it, and it's gonna be probably around $1 million.
So it makes total sense to plan this out. It makes total sense that those guys are gonna build it that you're ready for, right? I mean, we all kind of agree that build it correctly, build it right, you're gonna pay less in the future if you do it that way. But how does a town this size absorb that kind of risk? And your other customers, how do they absorb, $20,000, $30,000 profit, $7.2 million debt? How do they, I mean, help me out.
You want me to do it?
No, I like the town's
I'm not in finance.
There are other tools.
Tom, hold on a second. I mean, Dan, he's our town engineer. He's not our town finance.
I've got it financed.
He's
I've
the
got
guy.
it figured out.
He's who we've hired to help give us these numbers so that we can now go mitigate them. He's not the guy responsible for town finance. Just to be clear.
Yeah, I'm just curious what other towns do. I'm just curious that you probably run into this situation before. Because clearly we're saying this is important to do. How do other towns get past the risk?
Really, debt is one of them. So, and then, it's up to the town to decide how they finance that debt. There are other tools like a tax reinvestment zone, a public improvement district, that are just other financial tools that you can help that. You kind of stack them on top of each other to help with that. Like, this is just one tool. Debt is one tool. It's not meant to take on the entire $7 million. Like Clint said, past that, I get a little bit outside my comfort zone.
Yeah,
Finances.
Clarify who.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Very good point.
He's a civil engineer. He's got the staff that's going to approve. He's also the guy that's also reviewing everything with land plans coming in. He's just make sure we understand he's not the finance guy.
I mean, look, it's real simple. We either come up with a way to do it, and I've got a way to do it, and we'll pay nothing. Or we don't, and we got to quadruple our water rates. We triple the sewer rates and quadruple the water rates. That's it, it's cut and dry. I've got a way to do it. I've talked with financial engineers, there's a way to do it. It's pretty different. We won't pay anything. Or we could pay $6 million. We'll see.
When will we see that?
Those I put together.
So depends on, you gotta wait for the developer to come in.
I'm creating it as we speak. I'm
Right now,
trying
we
to
have
come up
enough
with a way to
water
do it.
to serve land plans, so there's no reason to go over right now.
So that's a good point.
But at the end of the day, I mean, look, it's $7 million.
We can go pay for the well now, and then if nothing develops out for 10 years, pay for the well now. So it's waiting to see what other guy is. So these are these things we have to, it puts the town in a much better position if we get them in place. We kind of have to just sit back and
I
wait
mean,
and see what comes in.
the scary thing, you keep saying the word risk, so to me, the scary thing is we can't control the developer walking in the door. If the developer walks in, I just bought the 60 acres for the right of land plan, here's my 120 houses or whatever, we can't say, well, time out, we're not ready yet. You know, we don't have the money to put in the well. We can't. We dodged a bullet all these years because we never had any debt. We were always able to figure out a way to pay for it as you go, or, you know, we never had to play like a big boy and go into debt. And all the other cities around us, that's why they have all this debt, because development, it causes debt. You know, we have a way out of it. I have a way out of it, but.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the fees, I don't have a problem with what you're doing from an engineering standpoint. I just want to understand, how do we prevent, the existing town from having to carry burden? Or what's the amount they gotta carry, right? How much do we have to absorb internally to figure it out? So I think once we get those, I think my questions are more geared towards the finance side and less the engineering. 'Cause the engineering looks, and the other thing I question you on is, you know, why we don't include more in that zone. But other than that, I mean, even, it looks like even if someone came in, it looks like you have the pipes ready.
Right.
So, from an engineering perspective, it looks like we didn't include them, but doesn't look like it's all that difficult to do that, right?
Right. It's being oversized a little bit to give you a little bit of factor safety, so there's room for additional development to come in.
And my review of all these numbers, I want to make it bigger. I mean, I want to make it just bigger. The capacity, I think, is good for now, but it's not the right size for what I think it's going to happen in the future. Okay. All right, let me back up on one thing, Todd. Could you do that up for a second, the schedule?
Sure.
Okay, so this is, again, we briefly talked about this. That is the work session with the CIAC. Their job is to make recommendations to us. That's their whole role to play, is to come up with recommendations, vet the thing, and they make a final report to us. That's what they do, is come to us. So it is best if we are not there. We are going to be the recipient of them. We should not be there when the CIC is meeting. It's just, it's just not done, okay? We just don't go to that meeting, because their whole point is that they have the freedom to generate their recommendations and come up with what they think is what they want to tell us. So it's just, I can't make you not go, but I'm just telling you, everybody has told me, Todd's told me, it makes perfect sense that the council should not be there, because we don't want to give the appearance. So.
And that's why I comment, Gary hasn't been part of any, this is the first time he's seen any of them, so this is,
Gary doesn't sit in on the engineering meeting, so he doesn't know about it.
so he's really just he's our real estate agent, and assist.
And to Mark's point, their only job is to provide comments. They won't have any sort of votes or any sort of regulatory authority. It'll be up to the town to take their comments and do with it what you will with them.
Dan, I think to address your question earlier, that's part of that meeting, is Todd is gonna walk them through what level set, what the expectations are, and at the end, what the expectations are for them to do. And then, of course, coach them for all the rules associated with meetings. And Linda's gonna attend, so we have minutes and things like that for the meeting to be published.
Sounds good.
Any other items?
I think that was the question.
Okay? All right, good?
Okay.
Time to vote,
All right.
Gary.
Well, you'll see me at least 30 more times,
See it a couple more times.
so.
Is Stuart going now?
No more presentation.
That's it?
Are we changing that date to the 22?
Now 22.
Yeah, so just on that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you,
All right, everybody understand? Any questions for our engineer?
Open up the questions.
Anybody? No? Okay. All right, brush up on your engineering, Darryl.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I grab you?
Yes, sir. Your device. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, sir.
Todd, thank you. Thanks, Stuart. Appreciate you coming out.
Enjoy about, what's your 10-minute drive home?
Okay.
Yeah, you probably did.
so what I want to do here is, so I wanted to, I've got a couple of graphs here, a couple of things I wanted to talk about. So this agenda item is just some past and current financial performance. The idea here is I want to give everybody kind of a quick update before we do the budget. Give you an idea about, some of the things that you may or may not be aware of. And it's important, I think, to put some of this stuff in context. So this is kind of hard to read. Okay, so what many of you may not know, so the town tried to do an audit. The town never did an audit in its history, so they tried. Back in 1996, they hired an auditor to come in and do an independent audit of the town. It was an interesting audit report. I just detailed, this is the cover page where the auditor gives their opinion. Basically, if you were to read this, what it says is the town didn't have records. They didn't keep good records. The auditor didn't have any basis to know anything. They didn't have revenues, they didn't have expenses, they didn't really have any accounting system to be able to record it. They couldn't tell them how much was the water bills, how much they were owed, how much they even put in the bank. They had no accounting system that was functional. They got $140,000 from the developer to put in the sewer plant. They didn't even know how to categorize. They just stuck it in the bank. And it was to build the sewer plant. At the end of the day, the auditors basically said because of the matters, there's no way for them to give any opinion at all. It was a failed audit. The auditor wouldn't say anything. The audit opinions are usually, there's three choices. You have a clean audit opinion, which says that, doesn't say there's no errors. An audit opinion says, if you look at the financials, they fairly represent the position of the firm. That these things represent, well, what the firm looks like. There's qualified, which says, it looks pretty good, except for we disagree with the way they did the accounting for their leased fire engine. And then there's what's called a going concern, where they just say, we think this company's going away. This company's imminently going to fail. We're walking away as fast as we can. This was a failed audit. They said, we can't even tell what you got. We're not even going to try to figure out what you have, nor are we going to give any opinions. Okay? So this was in 1995. It was a failed audit. They never tried again. So they never went and got any, they never fixed the accounting system, they never hired an accountant. They never tried it. That was it. That was their one-shot deal. Now, as y'all know, in about 1999 or so, a couple of years later, that's when the embezzlement started. So Dawn started embezzling money from the city. She kept embezzling year after year after year because there was no audit. So there was no audit. They finally caught her when she confessed. Okay, but she had been stealing money for years and years and years. That is the basic problem that we had. There was no audit. Now, is that a problem for them? No, look, it's volunteers. If you don't have any auditors up here, if you don't have anybody that knows anything about finance, you get what you get. We're a small town. So, you don't pick on people. If they don't have the skill, then they don't have the skill. They never had accounting records. They never had an accounting system to even be able to do an audit. They didn't know how to keep track of anything. Okay? That's just the way that it was. When the embezzlement happened and she finally was arrested and went to jail, that was in 2004, I believe. 2004, 2005. You would think the town then would have said, once and for all, we're going to get an audit. They didn't. They still didn't have an audit. Even after she embezzled the money and she got caught and she confessed, they still didn't do an audit. Okay? So we never did any audits until 2008. So in 2007, when I got here, the accounting system didn't exist. We had to start over. I had to create it from scratch. But then I sat there and made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of corrections in the existing system because they didn't know how to do QuickBooks. They didn't know how to do anything. In 2008, we had our first audit. It took me a year to get the information for the audit, because as it says up here, what did it cost to put in the sewer plant in 1994? Find out. What about the lift station in 1976? Well, the problem was, in order to do an audit, you gotta have all the asset values. You gotta track down. Simple. What did it cost to build this building? In order for you to put it on the balance sheet to do an audit, you gotta know what it cost. Well, where are the records to say what this building cost? Well, if they don't know how to keep records to write a check, they probably didn't keep any good records as far as keeping track of anything relating to the town. So that was what I did for a year. Was try and research, go through everything to try and find the asset values so we could actually have an audit. So in 2008, we had an audit, and we got a clean audit. We've had clean audits every year since. The sad thing is, in the first hour of the audit, you could have spotted the fraud. The fraud she did is she took the money from the utility accounts and she put them in her own bank account. She set up a separate bank account, just deposited them in there. Well, as you would expect with utility bills, you gotta give the person credit. Otherwise, they get kind of upset. You don't give them credit on their water bill. So the amount of credits on the water billing, and you look at the bank statement. Gee, there's an $80,000 difference between what made it in the bank and what you credited the customers. I wonder where the $80,000 went. It's the first hour of the audit. That fraud would have been found like that. It was a trivial fraud. Trivial. Okay. But anyway, we didn't find it. So now everything's audited. We have independent auditors, all clean audit opinions going forward. But that's it. We tried. They failed miserably because they didn't have the skill set to do an audit. Okay. Now, let's take a look at the town finance. So when we took over in 07, the town was essentially busted. The town didn't have any money. I mean, you know that. We were down to $2,000 in the bank in 2006. We only had $2,000. We had to run the whole town, $2,000. It was pretty scary. We entered our first year in 07 with $47,000 in the bank, which was enough, I think, to run the town for about a month. It was pretty scary back in 07. So this is our property taxes. So we peaked in 07 initially, and then we went down in 08. We did some good, we got a little bit of money. So what this is, the top graph is our actual property tax revenue. This is what we got over the years, from 07 when I walked in the door till now. The thing on the bottom is relative to 07. Where are we relative to 07? Well, relative to 07, you can see we cratered in 2013. We were below 07. So we had less tax dollars coming in 2013 than we had in 07. Now we started to come out of it, but we bottomed out in 2013. As you know, the appraisal district's a little behind. You know, when the things cratered, it took them a while to catch up. This is what's happened to our property taxes. If you add that up over all the years, if you add up all this money that we've gotten here, over the 8 years, it's a grand total of $15,000. We're $15,000 ahead over 8 years relative to what we had in 2007. $15,000 total over 8 years. Okay, that's good. Now, if you look then at the building permits, we were getting $77,000 a year back in 07 in building permits. Guess what happened? We all know what happened. What happened when the housing market crashed? We went to zero. Zero building permits. Zilch. These lines down here are, this is where we are each year relative to just 07. We never have gone back. We've never come close to actually getting back to 07. This is our dead weight loss in the building permits. We only have about 2 houses a year, 2 or 3. They were getting $77,000 a year. It was higher before that. $77,000 came in 07 in building permits. This net loss here, short, is $450,000. We have $450,000 less than what they had in 07 in the aggregate. $500,000. We would have had that money. That's enough for 3 bond payments. We'd already have half our debt paid off. We just would have hung in there. But we all know what happened. It all crashed. That's what happened when the housing market crashed. They were using building permits to fund the city. It was a big part of the city funding was the building permits. You guys don't know this, but when I got here, they charged me, the building permit fees were like $1.35 plus 65 cents for the plan review. 65% of your building permit was the plan review. So for my house, that was about $8,000 that I paid for the plan review. The building inspector that did the plan review, the one that actually redlined it and did it, they paid him $50. $50. He charged me $8,000. That's how the town was run. And it was explained to me at the time, we need the money. Suck it up. That's the way it goes. And that's what I did. That's what everybody did. Everybody had to do that. Everybody paid these building permits. That's what they used to run the town. That's how the town was run. Well, this is what we inherited. This red. No problem. Okay. Well, what do you think we did in 08 when everything cratered? We didn't have any money to begin with. What did we do in 08? I can tell you what we did. We did a crash stop. Like the 3rd month was here, we got a bill for the drying bed. It was about $50,000. We didn't have $50,000. The drying bed was great. Paul made a great investment. That drying bed has paid for itself 3 times over. It's a fantastic investment. It was the right thing to do. It's absolutely a good thing for the city. We seen everybody pay for it. But we were negative. We had a utility loan. Click.
I think there is.
We owed money. We were in the red. We had a utility loan, $120,000. We borrowed money to put in a well. Vince put in well number 2. So Vince borrowed the money, put in the second well, which was good. He borrowed about $200,000. Borrowed about $200,000. Then we didn't pay the well guy because he drilled the well late, so we kept the money. That's what we used to run the town. We kept the money of the well. We owed about $120,000 on that well in 08. So we walked in the door, we have about $40,000 in the bank, got a $50,000 bill for the drying bed, and we owe $120,000 on a utility loan. We have no accounting system because she's been embezzling the money and she doesn't keep up with the accounting. What we did in 08 was we did a crash stop. We stopped everything. And we went through every single bill and invoice in this town and stopped on everything. I was asking Linda about it. She remembers. I remember. She got on the phone. We had was it the exterminator or was it pest control? She called the pest control and made a deal. If we switched pest control companies, they'd give us 15 months for 12. We cut the phone line from 3 down to 2. They were paying sales tax on the phone bills, $8. I tried to get the state to rebate it back. They didn't know that the city doesn't pay sales tax, so they paid sales tax on everything. We went against everything. This building is not a commercial building. This building is a public building. It's a different rate on CoServe. It's like $80 a month, we say. We went nuts on every single expense line there was to try and just dig ourselves out. That's what we did, to try and get out of the hole we were in. And that's what we did. And we were able to keep the town running for that year, and then we got the new tax money, and we were able to get it going. Once the embezzlement was gone, we then start rebuilding some of the cash. Now, there's been some complaints about maintenance on the town. Okay. Well, here's our building permits. Sweet. From 77 to 24 to 14 to 0. From 77,000 down to 0. Now, what year do you think I asked to put in the sales tax? When did I push the sales tax through? 2010. We needed money. And we got $4,000 that year. Didn't make up much of the 77, but we got at least 4 in. But that's how bad we crashed. Now, this is the money we have to run the town. This is what it is relative to 2007. That was 07. This is the money we have to run, and here's where we are now. They had $255,000 to run the city. Dawn was embezzling money from the utility fund, not the city side, the utility side. They had $255,000 just to run the city. We have 79. We have $79,000 to run the city now. Because we didn't raise the taxes to cover the bond payment. We only raised it a nickel. Building permits have cratered. Yes, taxes have gone up slightly more. That's good news. The sales tax has gone up. We got about $30,000 in 2014. The sales tax doubled, went from 15 to 30. You guys may have seen in the mayor's letter, right? Why was I pleading with everybody to put Lakewood Village down as your address? Don't put Little M. Why was I begging everyone to get the sales tax up? Because that's when we made our first bond payment. It was coming up in 2015. And we needed the extra sales tax money to at least try and help something. And we got $30,000. This is what we're running the town on, 79. They had 255. We have 79,000. Okay? That's what the tax is. So this is the money from property taxes, building permits, sales taxes.
Minus the debt.
The debt in 2015, right, minus the amount of debt that the city has to pay. It's either that or raise your taxes. So that's the reality. That's the amount of money we have. Now, we're getting by, but that was the trade-off. Back here, in these years here, we paved Stowe Lake. We blacktopped Stowe, we blacktopped Meadow Lake, we blacktopped Shoreline. We spent over $200,000 on asphalt roads. We concluded that was not the way to go. That's why we did the evaluation. We ended up going to concrete. Asphalt roads were not working. They were failing. But we spent several $100,000 on asphalt. You can drive down Meadow Lake or drive down Stowe right now. You'll see it all cracked. Asphalt's a liquid. Take this can of Coke and pour it on the table in a straight line. It won't. It's going to weave. It's going to move. So that 79,000 is what we look at. Now this year it's a little bit more. It's probably around maybe 100 because we had an extra house and the property taxes went up. We've had a rebound. We had a couple $1 million houses come in. So we're probably now somewhere in the neighborhood of around 100 that we have to run the town. So we got to prioritize. There's certain things we can do and certain things we can't. Now, trying to get the roads repaired is certainly something we want to try and do. But this is reality here. This is the dose of reality, what we have. This is the money. We can keep the town running, but that's where we're at.
One of those priorities was the sewer plant, bring it fully within compliance too.
And the utility side, we've got squared away. The utility side is in good shape. And frankly, the utility side is why I can sleep at night, is because we have money set aside on the utility side for some of the infrastructure. And I know if the world ends tomorrow, on the city side, there's always money on the utility side. We have reserve funds, we have bank accounts, we have 12 accounts, money's all segregated. So I know if the world ends, we have money set aside. But we want to run the city from the city side. And that means running the city using property taxes, our building permits, and our sales taxes. That's what we're trying to do here. So as we get into the budget, you've got to have some rational expectations here. You can't get everything without raising the taxes. Something's got to give. Now, I think that was the bottom. I think we bottomed out in 15. We've had a couple new houses. The housing is coming around. We've got 3 or 4 houses this year. As we all know, the market's doing better. Our values went up about 4% this year. The lead went up about 15%. Ours went up about 4%. It's okay. We don't have double-digit increase. Little Oak's got a lot more houses going in. For us, our people are pretty vigilant about holding down the increases, which is perfectly fine. I agree with that. Okay, so 2016, we're probably around 100, I'm gonna guess. These numbers are all audited. That's why I didn't put 16 up there, we haven't done the audit yet. And all these numbers are audited. Okay? But that's where we're at. That's how we run the town. Okay? So we try and fix as best we can, but it's not that we don't care, it's not that we don't see it. It's just, there's only so much we can do. We've got to do this as we go. Okay? So, any questions? Any questions from anybody? The roads are expensive. The city council and I agreed with them. I agreed, I voted on it. I agree with them totally. If we went to the concrete roads, if we're not going to raise the taxes to cover the roads, then something's got to give. We cannot not raise the taxes and find the money. They won't allow us to print it. Something has to drop in the priority queue. And two things fell in the queue. The parks went to 0. And road repairs basically went to 0. Those two line items got way down, and that was by design. Because we needed to get by this year right here. And now we're going to start working our way up. Okay? But it's tough. It's not easy. I wish I had God, if I had $255,000 a year on the city side, holy cow, we'd be a different story right now. We'd have a lot more concrete right now. All right. Any questions from the audience? Everybody understand where we're coming from? So we're going to come up with a budget tonight. We have to make some trade-offs. We're going to go through the numbers as best we can. But that's what we're trying to do. Okay. Any questions from any of you guys? Are we all good?
I guess the only question I would have is, assuming these numbers are accurate, yeah, and we know that we're in a pinch, we also know that we've got, the roads are failing, we know we've got a problem there. We just heard that we've got a possible $7.2 million outstanding money we have to come up with. We talked last week that we've got a $1.5 million well, we got a rough number, nobody really knows. If we're operating on $100,000,
That's the city side.
city side, yeah, again, it's awesome that they're separated, right? Wouldn't that mean that we should be doing budget workshops and really going after these things in the public view? Because it seems to me like it'd be more important to know where your dollars are being spent rather than